3 chocolate bars. That's what brought the most dangerous man in Seoul to his knees. Not a bullet, not a rival's blade, not the weight of a criminal empire spanning 6 districts, 3 small hands, 3 identical faces, reaching up with chocolate bars toward a gray-haired old man sitting on a bench in the Gangnam Galleria luxury mall. "Papa! Papa! We got you the dark one!" Kang Hyun-woo stopped walking. His 2 bodyguards nearly collided into his back. His hand, the hand that had signed execution orders without trembling, went completely still at his side, because those 3 children had his jaw, his exact brow line, his mother's ears, and they were 2 years old. 2 years old. Now do the math with me. 2 years ago, Hyun-woo forced his wife, his pregnant wife, to kneel on the marble floor of his penthouse in front of his mistress. He told her she was nothing. He told her the marriage was a transaction. He told her to disappear. She did, and she was 8 weeks pregnant at the time. He knew. He simply did not care. But here's what he didn't know. She didn't lose the baby. She carried triplets, full term, alone. And the man those children are now calling Papa. He's been there since the delivery room. 24 months. That's all it took for Kang Hyun-woo to be completely, surgically replaced. And the woman standing behind those children, calm, dressed simply, holding a reusable grocery bag like a woman who has never been afraid of anything. That's Hana Choi, his ex-wife. She hasn't looked at him yet, but she will. If you're already hooked, subscribe to Aurora Love Saga and hit that bell, because this story does not go where you think it's going. And the real question isn't why she left. You already know why she left. The real question is, what did Hyun-woo do when he realized the old man wasn't just babysitting? He was their father in every way that mattered. The Gangnam Galleria on a Tuesday afternoon was the kind of place where silence cost money. Marble floors polished to a mirror finish, store associates who bowed at precisely 15 degrees, the scent of Italian leather mixing with 300,000 one candles from a boutique nobody needed. Kang Hyun-woo walked through this world the way a shark moved through open water, without urgency, because nothing here was faster than him. He wore a charcoal Tom Ford suit, no tie. His watch alone was worth more than most apartments in Mapo-gu. 2 men flanked him, both wearing earpieces. He had come to the Galleria for a private meeting on the 4th floor, a shipping logistics negotiation, routine. But then he passed the central atrium, and routine died. 3 toddlers, identical in the terrifying way only genetics can engineer, were standing near a fountain. 2 boys, 1 girl, each held a small chocolate bar from the confectionery kiosk nearby. They were laughing. The kind of laughter that didn't know what fear was. The kind of laughter that had never heard a raised voice. They ran to a man seated on a bench. He was perhaps 70, thin, gentle hands. The kind of man who wore reading glasses around his neck and carried handkerchiefs in his pocket. The kind of man Hyun-woo had never been and never would be. "Papa! Papa, this one's yours!" The girl, the smallest of the 3, held her chocolate bar up with both hands. The old man took it, broke off a piece, and fed it back to her. "Thank you, my little plum." Hyun-woo's chest locked, not because of the scene, because of the faces. Those 3 faces were a mirror held up to 27 years ago, to a photograph his mother had taken of him before she walked out of his life for good. Same brow, same sharp chin, same dark, watchful eyes. His children. He didn't need a DNA test. He didn't need confirmation. Biology was screaming at him through the glass of a luxury mall atrium like a siren he couldn't mute. And then, standing 6 feet behind the children, holding a canvas bag with vegetable greens poking out the top, was Hannah. She looked different. Not broken, not thin from grief, not hiding in oversized coats the way she had during their marriage. She looked like a woman who slept 8 hours, who ate 3 meals, who had learned to exist in a body that wasn't bracing for someone's anger. She looked healed. And that was the part that nearly killed him. Because Kang Hyun-woo could handle enemies. He could handle betrayal, prison threats, police raids, and assassination attempts. But he could not handle the sight of a woman who was clearly, unmistakably better without him. But what happened next made it worse. So much worse. The old man looked up at Hannah and smiled. She smiled back. Not a romantic smile, a familial one. The kind exchanged between people who share school-run schedules and midnight fevers and the quiet terror of a child's first illness. The kind of smile that said, "We built this, together." Hyun-woo's lead bodyguard, Sergeant Doe, leaned in. "Sir, your meeting is—" "Cancel it. Sir, cancel everything." He didn't move. He stood there in the polished atrium of the Gangnam Galleria, the most feared man in Seoul's underworld, watching an old man feed chocolate to his children. Children he never knew existed. Children who didn't know his name. His phone buzzed. A message from a district lieutenant about a warehouse dispute in Incheon. He stared at the screen like it was written in a language he'd forgotten. Warehouse. Incheon. Dispute. 30 feet away, his daughter was being fed chocolate by a stranger, and the phone wanted him to care about shipping containers. He silenced it. And somewhere, deep in the architecture of his mind, a wall cracked. Not fell, not crumbled, cracked. Because walls like his don't fall from one moment. They fracture slowly over scenes like this. And the fracture had just begun. The man who had never hesitated in a boardroom, never blinked during a police raid, never flinched when a rival pulled a weapon across a negotiation table. That man was now standing in a shopping mall, paralyzed by the sound of a toddler's laughter. But that crack? That was the most dangerous thing that had ever happened to Kang Hyun-woo's empire. Because what he did next set fire to everything. 48 hours. That's how long it took Hyun-woo's intelligence network, the same network that tracked prosecutors, rival clans, and overseas shipments in real time, to compile a dossier on the woman who had once shared his bed. The file landed on his black marble desk at 2:14 a.m. Hannah Choi, age 29, former emergency medical nurse, licensed and trained in crisis triage, resigned from Severance Hospital 3 months before their marriage ended. Current residence, a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Dongjak-gu, far from Gangnam, far from anything resembling his world. 3 children, born at a private birthing clinic in Cheongju. 2 boys, Kang Seo-jun and Kang Seo-jin. 1 girl, Kang Seo-yun. All registered under her name only. No father listed on any birth certificate. That detail landed like a slap. No father listed. She had erased him, not emotionally, not symbolically, but legally. On paper, Kang Hyun-woo did not exist in his children's lives. He was a blank line on a government form. And the old man? Park Yong-sik, age 71. Retired pharmacist, Hannah's former landlord who had become a surrogate grandfather during her pregnancy. No romantic connection, no legal guardianship, just presence, just kindness, just showing up. Hyun-woo closed the file. His chief advisor, a man named Director Baek, sat across from him. "What do you want to do?" Silence. "We can initiate a paternity filing within—" "No." Beck blinked. In 11 years, he had never heard Hyun-woo say no to a power play. "If I file for paternity," Hyun-woo said, Every prosecutor in Seoul gets a headline. Mafia boss claims secret children. Her address goes public. The children become targets. Not from my enemies, from the legal system itself. He stood and walked to the window. Seoul glittered below, cold, blue, indifferent. Find out their routines, schools, parks, medical visits. I want a security perimeter that she never sees. I want them protected without knowing they're protected. And contact with her? Hyun-woo's jaw tightened. None. And there it was. Phase 1. Not a strategy session, not a negotiation. A man standing at a window choosing to be invisible in his own children's lives because the alternative, his presence, was the thing most likely to destroy them. But here's what Hyun-woo didn't know yet. He wasn't the only one who had seen those children that day in the Galleria. Someone else had been watching. Someone with a badge, a grudge, and a very different plan for those triplets. Prosecutor Min Jae-kwon was not the kind of man who shouted. He didn't need to. He had something far more dangerous than volume. He had patience. At 44, Min had spent 12 years building a case architecture against the Kang organization. 12 years of sealed indictments, frozen assets, turned witnesses, and careful surgical pressure. He was the reason 2 of Hyun-woo's shipping routes had collapsed. He was the reason the Kang organization's casino license in Jeju had been revoked. And now, he was sitting in his office, looking at a surveillance photograph taken inside the Gangnam Galleria. 3 children, 1 woman, 1 old man, and in the background, blurred but unmistakable, Kang Hyun-woo, frozen mid-step. Well, Min said to himself, adjusting his glasses, that's interesting. He opened a second file. Hana Choi, former wife. No divorce settlement recorded. She had signed away everything voluntarily. No alimony, no contact orders. Just a clean, silent exit. But she had children, Kang's children, and they were unregistered on his side. Min understood immediately what this meant. Not emotionally. He didn't care about emotion. He understood what it meant strategically. Those children were a vulnerability. The first real vulnerability Kang Hyun-woo had shown in a decade. If Min could establish legal standing, if he could get a family court involved, trigger a custody inquiry, force Child Protective Services into an investigation, he could crack open the Kang Empire's finances. Because custody battles required disclosure, bank accounts, properties, associates. Every financial thread Hyun-woo had kept buried would have to surface in a family courtroom. It was elegant. It was legal. And it would destroy Kang Hyun-woo more completely than any criminal indictment ever could. Min picked up his phone. Get me everything on Hana Choi, residence, employment, the children's school enrollment, and find out who Park Young-sik is. I want financials, medical records, any complaints filed with child welfare services, even ones that were dismissed. Build me a paper trail. He hung up and leaned back in his chair. The photograph of the Galleria atrium glowed on his screen. Some prosecutors build cases with evidence. Min Jae-kwon built them with leverage. And leverage required pressure points. A single mother with 3 toddlers, living in a modest apartment in Dongjak-gu, with no legal representation and no powerful allies. That was not a person. That was a pressure point. Or so he thought. Because what Min didn't know, what nobody in that prosecutor's office could have predicted, was that Hana Choi had spent 2 years preparing for exactly this kind of attack. Not consciously, not strategically, but through the quiet, relentless work of building a life so stable, so documented, so irreproachably clean that no court in Seoul could find a crack in it. Min smiled. Not a villain's smile, a chess player's smile, because he believed he had just found the king's unguarded flank, and he was about to move. But let me tell you something about Prosecutor Min, something that won't become clear until much later. His connection to Hyunwoo's mistress, the one who stood smiling while Hana knelt on that marble floor, that wasn't a coincidence. That was a transaction. And the receipt? It was about to come due. Phase 2 began not with a plan, but with a scream. It was a Saturday, late morning. Hana had taken the triplets to the small neighborhood market near their apartment, the kind of place that sold tangerines in red mesh bags and played old trot music from a speaker held together with tape. Seo Jun, the boldest of the three, had wandered 2 aisles away while Hana was paying. Normal toddler behavior, terrifying for a mother of 3. What wasn't normal was the man who reached for him. He wasn't a kidnapper, not exactly. He was a private investigator, hired by Min's office posing as a market customer, tasked with photographing the children up close for a facial recognition match against Kang family records. But when Seo Jun tripped over a vegetable crate and started crying, the investigator bent down to pick him up. And that's when everything went sideways. Because Hyunwoo's invisible security perimeter wasn't just a concept. It was a living, breathing detail of 3 former Special Forces operatives embedded in a 1-block radius around Hana's apartment. The lead operative, codenamed Guan, moved in 4 seconds flat. He appeared from behind a rice display, gently intercepted the investigator's arm before it reached Seo Jun, and smiled politely. "Oh, let me help. I think his mother is right over there." No force, no scene, just a calm redirection that looked, to every bystander, like a helpful stranger. Guan scooped Seo Jun up, walked him to Hana, and disappeared before she could ask his name. Hana stood there, holding her son, watching the back of a man she'd never seen before. Her nurse's instincts, the ones trained to assess situations in under 3 seconds, fired immediately. That wasn't random. Someone was watching her children, and someone else was protecting them. She looked around the market. Everything seemed normal. The trot music played, tangerines were stacked, an old woman haggled over perilla leaves, but Hana's hands were shaking, not from fear, from recognition, because only one person in the world would build a security perimeter around her children without asking permission. Only one person operated like that, silent, invisible, controlling even in absence. She didn't say his name. She didn't even think it fully, but her body knew, the way your body remembers the exact shape of a hand that once gripped your wrist too tightly. She picked up all 3 children, abandoned her groceries at the register, and went home. She locked the door, and she sat on the kitchen floor with her back against the refrigerator and cried. Not because she was afraid, because she realized the wall she'd built, 24 months of careful, deliberate, exhausting distance, might not be thick enough. She had changed her phone number, moved to a neighborhood where nobody knew her maiden name, paid for everything in cash for the first 6 months. She had built an invisible life, and now that invisible life had been seen by the one person she had been invisible from. But here's the part that changes everything. Hana didn't just cry that night, she made a decision. And that decision would rewrite every rule of this story. Hana didn't call Hyunwoo. She would never call Hyunwoo. Instead, she contacted Director Baek through an old emergency number she'd memorized during the marriage, a number meant for situations involving imminent danger. She used it now because, in her mind, Hyunwoo's proximity was imminent danger. She spent the next morning making arrangements. She called a neighbor to watch the children. She chose a cafe she had never visited before, a place with no emotional memory, no history, no fingerprints of her old life. They met at the small cafe 3 blocks from the Dongja-gu metro station. Neutral ground, plastic chairs, fluorescent lighting, the kind of place where no one from Gangnam would ever set foot. Beck arrived alone, as instructed. He looked uncomfortable in the setting. His shoes alone cost more than the cafe's monthly revenue. "He knows," Hannah said, not a question. Beck nodded. The children. He saw them. At the Galleria. Yes. Hannah wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. Her knuckles were white, but her voice was steel. "I will say this once, Director Bayek, and I need you to record this on whatever device you use to protect yourself from him. I will not be managed. I will not be surveilled. I will not have armed men near my children's school, their playground, or their home." Baek opened his mouth. "I'm not finished." He closed it. "If Kang Hyun-woo wants to know that his children are safe, I will provide quarterly updates through you. Photographs, health records, school progress. That is my offer. In exchange, he stays invisible. No contact, no presence, no shadow teams, no financial interference. The moment I detect a single operative within 200 meters of my children, I disappear again. And this time, Director Bayek, I promise you, he will never find us." Beck sat quietly for a moment. Then, "He won't accept that. He doesn't have to accept it. He has to respect it. There's a difference. One is about his feelings, the other is about my children's safety. I stopped caring about his feelings the night he made me kneel." Silence. The cafe's espresso machine hissed. "I'll relay the terms," Beck said. "They're not terms, they're boundaries. And I need you to understand the difference, because he never could. Terms are negotiable. Boundaries are walls. You don't negotiate with a wall. You either respect it or you break yourself against it." Beck studied her for a long moment. He had watched this woman 3 years ago, timid, soft-spoken, flinching at loud voices. The woman in front of him now was forged from something harder than anything in Hyun-woo's arsenal. "You've changed," he said, not unkindly. "No, I just stopped being afraid. There's a difference." She left the cafe first. Beck sat alone for 10 minutes, staring at his untouched water. Then he called Hyun-woo. "She has conditions." "I heard." Beck paused. "You were listening." "I'm always listening, Beck. That's the problem." And that's when the Phase 2 rules locked into place. Hyun-woo would receive photographs, updates, medical reports, but he would not see them. He would not touch them. He would not exist in their world. For most men, this would be a negotiation starting point. For Kang Hyun-woo, it was a prison sentence delivered by the only judge he couldn't intimidate. But what Hannah didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that the investigator from the market had already transmitted the children's photographs to prosecutor Min's office. And Min didn't need a security perimeter. He needed a courtroom. And he was about to build one around Hannah's entire life. 4 months of photographs. That's what Hyun-woo had. A folder. Physical, not digital, because digital could be hacked, containing 47 photographs of 3 children he could not hold. Seo-jun learning to stack blocks. Seo-jin asleep with a stuffed whale. Seo-yun in a yellow raincoat, laughing at puddles. He studied them the way he studied intelligence reports. Every detail, every background object, the color of the walls, the brand of the high chair, the books on the shelf behind them. And always, always, in at least a third of the photographs, the old man, Park Yong-sik, feeding them, reading to them, carrying them on his back the way Korean grandfathers had done for centuries, the way Hyun-woo's own grandfather had once carried him before everything went cold. Phase 3 began without announcement. It started with the photographs, those 47 images becoming a ritual. Every night after the last meeting, after the last phone call, after every subordinate left the office, Hyun-woo would open the folder. He memorized details the way other men memorized stock portfolios. Seo-jun's left-leaning smile, the way Seo-jin held pencils with his whole fist. Seo-yun's habit of tilting her head when confused, identical to his own, though he'd never noticed it in himself until he saw it reflected in her. He began keeping a small notebook. Dates, milestones, first words captured in Hana's typed updates. Seo-jun said, bus, pointing at a taxi. Seo-jin said, more at dinner every night for 2 weeks. Seo-yun's first full sentence was, I do it myself. And Hyun-woo read that line 4 times because he heard his own voice in it. Then the photographs weren't enough. Hyun-woo started visiting the periphery of their world, not inside it, around it. The elementary school they would eventually attend, he donated an anonymous library wing. The park they frequented, he funded the renovation of the playground equipment through a shell charity. The pediatric clinic Hana used, he ensured it received a grant for new diagnostic equipment. He was reshaping the infrastructure of their lives without ever entering it, building walls of safety around them, using money instead of arms. And one afternoon, he went too far. He stood across the street from the park, wearing a plain coat, no bodyguards for the first time in years, and watched them play. Seo-yun was on the slide. Seo-jun was throwing sand at his brother. Seo-jin was sitting quietly, watching a beetle. The old man sat on a bench, peeling a tangerine, handing segments to whichever child ran past. Hyun-woo watched for 11 minutes. On the 12th minute, Seo-yun fell from the second step of the slide. Not a dangerous fall, maybe 18 inches, but she hit the ground and started wailing the way children do when surprise hurts more than impact. Hyun-woo's body moved before his brain caught up. 2 steps forward, his hand reached out, and then he stopped, because Park Yong-sik was already there, already lifting her, already brushing the sand from her knees and kissing her forehead and saying, "Hi-goo, my brave girl. That slide doesn't know who it's dealing with." Seo-yun laughed through her tears, and Hyun-woo stepped back. He stood there, hand still half extended, watching another man comfort his daughter. And the expression on his face, if anyone had been watching, was not anger. It was understanding. The slow, devastating understanding that he had not been replaced by force. He had been replaced by presence, by consistency, by the simple, radical act of showing up every single day and staying. He returned to his car. Sergeant Doe was waiting. "Sir?" "Get me a drink." "We're going to the office?" "No, get me a drink. Any drink. I don't care." Doe had served Hyun-woo for 9 years. He had seen this man negotiate with Yakuza representatives without blinking. He had watched him calmly eat dinner while receiving news that a rival had placed a bounty on his head. He had never, not once, heard him ask for a drink in that voice. "There's a convenience store on the corner." "I don't care where. Just not here. I can't be here right now." Doe drove 2 blocks in silence, bought a can of black coffee from a vending machine and returned. Hyun-woo held it without drinking. The can grew warm in his grip. He sat in the back seat and looked at the most recent photograph in the folder, Seo-yun in her yellow raincoat. In the background, barely visible, slightly out of focus, Park Yong-sik was tying her shoe. Tying her shoe. Such a small thing. The kind of thing fathers do 10,000 times without remembering a single instance. The kind of thing that becomes invisible through repetition. But to a man who has never once knelt to tie his child's shoe, it was a monument, a testament to every morning he had missed, every shoelace he would never touch. And for the first time in 20 years, Kang Hyun-woo pressed his fingers to his eyes and cried silently in the back of a bulletproof sedan, parked across from a public playground in Dongjak-gu, while his daughter's laughter faded in the autumn air. But here's the thing about grief. When it finally cracks through a man like Hyun-woo, it doesn't come alone. It brings clarity. And clarity, for a man who controls everything, is the most dangerous weapon in the world. Because he was about to learn exactly who had been photographing his children, and why. Now, if you've never experienced Chuseok, Korean Thanksgiving, let me set the scene for you. It's the holiday where families gather, where generations sit together, where ancestors are honored with carefully prepared food, where children bow to their elders, and where the absence of family isn't just noticed, it's felt in every empty chair. Park Yong-sik's home was a small Hanok-style house in the old part of Dongjak-gu. The floors were heated by ondol. The kitchen smelled of japchae and galbi-jjim. Paper lanterns hung in the small courtyard. Hana had dressed the triplets in matching hanbok, tiny silk garments in blue and pink. Seo-jun kept pulling at his hat. Seo-jin was fascinated by the songpyeon rice cakes. Seo-yun had already stolen a piece of yakwa and was hiding behind a door frame eating it. Park Yong-sik, wearing a traditional vest, sat at the low table and watched them with the quiet contentment of a man who understood that family was not about blood. "Hana-ya," he said, "sit. You've been cooking since 5. Someone has to." You could have ordered Yong-sik abeoji. She used the Korean term for father, not formally, warmly, the way a daughter would. Chuseok food is made by hand. My mother never taught me that, so I taught myself. These children will have what I didn't. He smiled, and in that smile was everything this story is really about. Outside, in a car parked at the end of the alley, Kang Hyun-woo sat alone. He had told himself he wouldn't come. He had instructed Sergeant Do to drive to the office, but somewhere between Yeoksamdong and the highway, he had given a different address. Now he sat in the dark, watching through the courtyard gate as warm light spilled from the windows. He could hear the children singing a Chuseok song, off-key, chaotic, beautiful. Rain began to fall, light at first, then steady. He didn't turn on the car's engine. He didn't roll up the window. He sat with the rain coming in, watching his children celebrate a holiday with a family he was not part of. Let me ask you something, and I mean this. If your child called another man Papa, not because they were taken from you, but because you gave them away through your own cruelty, would you still try to come back? Or would you accept that some doors close because you're the one who slammed them? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear this one. Hyun-woo sat in that car for 2 hours. When the lights inside finally dimmed and the children were carried to bed, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. Inside, 3 tiny gold bracelets. Traditional Chuseok gifts from parent to child. He placed the envelope on the gatepost and drove away. The next morning, Hana found them. No name, no note. She knew. She put the bracelets in a drawer. She didn't show them to the children. She didn't mention them to Yong-sik. She sat at the kitchen table and held one of the tiny gold circles in her palm, feeling its weight. So light, so impossibly light for something that carried so much meaning. She said nothing, but she didn't throw them away. 2 weeks later, when Seo-yoon found the drawer open and put one on her wrist by herself, Hana didn't take it off. And that small act of not discarding, of not correcting, of letting a tiny gold thread remain, was the first micro crack in her wall. Phase 3 had delivered its payload, not through force, not through strategy, through rain and gold and the unbearable tenderness of a man who was learning, far too late, that love is not a perimeter you control. It's a door you knock on. And then you wait. But waiting was about to become a luxury Hyun-woo could no longer afford, because the next morning, Hana received a letter, an official letter, from the Seoul family court, and the name on the filing? It wasn't Kang Hyun-woo's, it was prosecutor Min Jae-kwon's. The letter arrived in a plain white envelope. Government seal. No warmth. No hesitation. Hana was making breakfast when she opened it. Seo-jun was banging a spoon on his high chair. Seo-jin was carefully arranging blueberries in a line. Seo-yun was trying to feed cereal to a stuffed rabbit. Normal, ordinary. The kind of morning that smells like rice porridge and sounds like chaos. The letter was precise, clinical, devastating. A formal inquiry had been opened by the Seoul family court regarding the welfare of 3 minor children residing at Hana's address. The inquiry cited potential exposure to organized criminal influence based on anonymous tips and photographic evidence linking the children's biological father to the Kong criminal organization. The letter requested full financial disclosure of the household, educational and medical records of all 3 children, a home environment assessment by court-appointed social workers, identification of all adult caregivers and their backgrounds. And at the bottom, in the procedural language of bureaucrats who destroy lives with paperwork, should the court determine that the children's environment poses developmental or safety risks, temporary custody reassignment may be considered. Hana read it 3 times. Then she put the children in front of a cartoon, walked into the bathroom, closed the door, and pressed both hands flat against the wall. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Hana Choi had survived a corrupt family, a violent marriage, a secret pregnancy, and a solo delivery of triplets. She did not have the luxury of falling apart. Instead, she thought, the filing wasn't from Hyun-woo. She knew his methods, brute financial force, not legal maneuvering. This was surgical. This was someone who understood family law as a weapon. She picked up her phone and called the only number she'd sworn never to use again. Hyun-woo answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting 2 years for this call. "I know," he said before she spoke. "Then you know this isn't about the children's welfare. It's about mine, my empire. He's using them to get to me." Silence. "Hana, I need to—" "No, you need to listen. For once in your life, Kang Hyun-woo, you need to listen and not command." He went quiet. This prosecutor, whoever he is, doesn't want the children. He wants your financial records. He wants disclosure. The custody filing is a Trojan horse. "I know." "Then you know what the only move is." "Yes. Say it." Another silence. Longer this time. Heavy enough to fill the room. "I have to step away from the organization, publicly, legally, verifiably, so that no court can argue my existence endangers them." "Not step away," Hana said, and her voice, the voice of a woman who had once whispered apologies for existing in his presence, was iron. "Dismantle. Burn it down. Leave nothing they can trace to those children. Every shell company, every associate, every offshore account. If there is a single thread connecting your world to theirs, I need it severed. Not loosened, not hidden, severed. You're asking me to destroy my empire. I'm asking you to choose empire or children. You don't get both. You never did. Your mother chose something else over you, and you spent your whole life punishing everyone for it. Now you get to decide. Are you her? Or are you something different? The line went silent. For 3 full seconds, Hyun-woo said nothing. The mention of his mother, a wound he had never shown her, a wound she had apparently always seen, landed like a blade between his ribs. That was cruel, he said quietly. No, Hyun-woo. That was honest. You should try it sometime. She hung up. And that phone call was phase 4, the full commitment test, not a romantic gesture, not a grand declaration, a cold, clear ultimatum from a woman who had learned that love from Kang Hyun-woo came with a price tag, and this time, she was the one setting the amount. Everything. He had to give up everything. And the most terrifying part? He was actually considering it. But Prosecutor Min wasn't finished, not even close, because the photographs from the market, the investigator's report, those had already been leaked to a journalist, and by morning the story would be on every screen in Seoul. What Kang Hyun-woo did over the next 6 weeks was something no intelligence agency, no rival clan, and no prosecutor had ever managed to do. He dismantled himself, not dramatically, not with fire or confession or public spectacle. He did it the way he had built the empire in the first place, methodically, precisely, and in total silence. The same discipline that had made him dangerous now made him something else entirely, deliberate. It started quietly. Shell companies dissolved, offshore accounts rerouted to legitimate holding structures. 3 of his 6 district operations were transferred permanently to subordinate leaders who had no traceable connection to his name. Director Bayek watched this the way a surgeon watches a patient remove their own stitches. You're gutting the infrastructure, Beck said. I'm cleaning it. You're making yourself vulnerable. Min will smell blood. Let him. The second week, Hyun-woo signed over the casino interests. The third week, the import networks. By week 4, the Kang organization, as a hierarchical structure with him at the top, effectively ceased to exist on paper. But here's the part that matters. He didn't just dissolve assets. He redirected them. An education trust, anonymous, irrevocable, appeared in the names of Seo-jun, Seo-jin, and Seo-yun. Funded for full university education, graduate school, and a living stipend until age 30. No strings, no conditions, no Kang name attached. A medical fund, a housing guarantee, a small retirement supplement for Park Yong-sik, routed through a pharmaceutical industry pension so it would never be traced. He was converting his empire into a safety net, turning power into protection, exchanging control for care, and it was costing him everything he had ever built. When the news article hit, alleged Mafia boss linked to secret children, Hyun-woo didn't fight it. He didn't call lawyers. He didn't threaten the journalist. Instead, he did something no one expected. He walked into the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's office. Voluntarily. Alone. He sat across from Min Jae-kwon, and he said, "You want my financial records? Here." He placed a USB drive on the desk. Every account, every transaction, every name. Going back 15 years. Min stared at the drive like it might explode. What is this? It's my empire. Take it apart. Prosecute whoever you need to. Freeze whatever you want. But the custody inquiry against Hana Choi gets withdrawn today, and those children are removed from every file in this office. You're surrendering? I'm choosing. Min leaned back. And if I don't withdraw? Hyun Woo's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped to the register that had made grown men leave rooms. Then you should know that the woman your office is threatening, the one you think is leverage, she's smarter than both of us. She's already documented every contact between your office and Song Min-ji. Song Min-ji, the mistress, the one who stood smiling while Hana knelt. Min's face went still. Did you think I didn't know? Hyun Woo said. Song Min-ji fed information to your office for 2 years. She was your source inside my organization, and in exchange, you protected her financial interests. That's not whistleblowing, Prosecutor Min. That's conspiracy. He stood. Withdraw the custody filing, or Hana releases the documentation. Not to me, not to my lawyers, to the Korean Bar Association, and then the Seoul Metropolitan Police Ethics Board, and then every newsroom that covered the original story. He stood, adjusted his coat, looked at Min one final time. You spent 12 years trying to find my weakness. Congratulations. You found it. 3 of them, actually. 2 boys and a girl. But here's what you didn't account for. A man with nothing left to protect is not weaker. He's free. And a free man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous thing you'll ever face in a courtroom. He left the drive on the desk and walked out. Min sat alone in his office for 20 minutes. He called his legal aide. He called the court clerk. He stared at the USB drive like it was a grenade with the pin removed. And for the first time in 12 years, Prosecutor Min Jae-kwon had nothing to say. The custody filing was withdrawn 48 hours later, quietly. No press conference, no statement, just a procedural notation in a court filing system that nobody would ever read. But the cost, the real cost, was already paid. Hyun Woo's empire was gone, not seized, not lost, surrendered, voluntarily, piece by piece, for 3 children who didn't know his name. And that's the transformation, isn't it? Not a speech, not a tearful monologue, a man who built a kingdom deciding brick by brick to tear it down, because the thing he wanted to protect couldn't exist inside its walls. 3 days after the custody filing was withdrawn, Hana received a message through Director Bayek. He wants to speak with you. No conditions, no agenda. He says you choose the place. She chose the rooftop of her apartment building. Neutral enough. Open enough that she wouldn't feel trapped. Cold enough that the conversation couldn't last long. He came alone. No Sergeant Doe. No earpiece. Just a man in a dark coat standing on a rooftop in Dongjak-gu, looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. They stood 5 feet apart. The city spread below them, neon and rain and the endless hum of Seoul at midnight. Say what you came to say, Hana said. He didn't look at her immediately. He looked at the city he had owned pieces of, moved through like a god, reshaped according to his will. My mother left when I was 7, he said. Not dramatically, no fight, no note. She just wasn't there one morning, and no one explained it. My father said, she chose something else. That's all. 3 words. And I spent the next 20 years making sure no one would ever choose something else over me again. He paused. I built systems, organizations. I made people need me so they couldn't leave. I confused dependence with loyalty. I confused control with safety. He turned to her. The night I made you kneel, I wasn't punishing you. I was proving to myself that I could make someone stay, that if I broke you enough, you wouldn't have the strength to leave. But I did. Yes, you did. And you took the only thing I didn't know I wanted. His voice cracked, not theatrically, just a fracture, like a bone that had been set wrong and was finally breaking so it could heal properly. I built a kingdom, Hana, and I don't belong in my own children's life anymore. I know that. I know the old man is better for them. I know your apartment is safer than any fortress I could build. I know that my love, the way I learned to love, is a weapon, not a gift. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thin folder, handed it to her. What is this? Formal renunciation of paternal custody claim. Signed, notarized. I will never file for custody. I will never challenge your authority. The trusts are set. The funds are untouchable. By me, by any prosecutor, by anyone. They belong to the children. Hana looked at the folder but didn't open it. What do you want, Hyun-woo? I want... He stopped, swallowed, started again. I want to know if someday they might know I existed, not as their father. I haven't earned that, just as someone who tried, at the end, to be less terrible. Hana looked at him, really looked at him. Not the way she had looked at him during their marriage, with caution, with calculation, with the constant background hum of survival. She looked at him the way a nurse looks at a patient who has finally stopped lying about where it hurts. You dismantled everything, she said, not a question. Yes, the casinos, the shipping routes, the district operations, all of it. Why? He almost laughed. You told me to. I told you to choose. I didn't think you would actually... She stopped, pressed her lips together, looked away. You didn't think I'd choose them. No, she said quietly. I didn't. Neither did I. They stood in silence. The city breathed below them. A siren wailed somewhere in Yongsan. A convenience store sign flickered blue and white on the corner. I won't promise you anything, she said. I know. But I won't lie to them either. When they're old enough to ask, and they will ask, Hyun-woo, children always ask, I'll tell them the truth, all of it, the good and the terrible, and they'll decide for themselves what to do with it. He nodded. That's more than I deserve. Yes, she said, it is. They stood in silence for a long time, not together, not apart, just two people on a rooftop, finally seeing each other without the armor. Then Hana said something she didn't plan to say. The bracelets, at Chuseok. He looked up. Seo-yoon wears hers every day. She calls it her rain bracelet, because it appeared after the rain. Hyun-woo closed his eyes, and on a cold rooftop in Dongjak-gu, the most feared man in Seoul received the only gift that had ever mattered to him, a detail, a small, insignificant detail about a gold bracelet on a tiny wrist, and it was enough. 1 year later. Seo-jun has started preschool. He's the loud one, the one who organizes the other children into elaborate games with rules only he understands. His teachers say he has leadership qualities. Hana calls it his father's volume problem. Seo-jin is quiet. He draws. Meticulous, detailed drawings of buildings and bridges. His favorite subject is the park near their home, the one with the renovated playground equipment that appeared one day, donated by an anonymous charity. Seo-yoon is fearless. She climbs everything. She talks to strangers. She wears a small gold bracelet on her left wrist and tells anyone who asks that it came from the rain. Park Yong-sik is 72 now, slower but steady. He walks the children to school every morning. He peels tangerines at the park every afternoon. He reads them stories every night, always the same book because Seo-jin insists on routine. They call him Papa. Hana works part-time at a community health clinic. She is studying for her nursing recertification. She sleeps 8 hours. She eats 3 meals. She has a small garden on the apartment balcony where she grows perilla and chives. She does not look over her shoulder anymore. When she passes the spot in the market where the investigator once reached for her son, she doesn't flinch. When official letters arrive, she opens them calmly because the only letters that come now are from the preschool and the health clinic. She has started laughing more. Not the performative laughter of a woman trying to prove she's fine. The real kind. The kind that escapes before you can catch it. At Seo Jun's terrible jokes. At Seo Yun's dramatic retellings of playground events. At Seo Jin's quiet observations that sound like poetry from a 3-year-old philosopher. Park Yong-sik tells her she looks younger than when they met. She tells him that's because she finally sleeps. And Kang Hyun-woo, he is a ghost. Not the frightening kind, the other kind. The kind that watches from far away and asks for nothing. On the last day of this story, the triplets are walking to school with Park Yong-sik. It's a Tuesday, ordinary, unremarkable. Seo Jun is running ahead. Seo Jin is holding the old man's hand. Seo Yun is skipping. And 30 meters behind them, on the other side of the street in a plain coat, without bodyguards, without empire, without title, Kang Hyun-woo walks at their pace. He doesn't call out. He doesn't cross the street. He doesn't try to close the distance. He just walks. Parallel to the life he destroyed, and is now learning to love from the only distance it will allow. Seo Yun turns around, not because she sees him, but because a leaf blows past her. She laughs and chases it, and for 1 second, one impossible, unbearable, perfect second, her eyes pass over the man across the street. She doesn't recognize him. She turns back and keeps skipping, and Hyun-woo keeps walking, not closer, not further, just there. He walks the same route every Tuesday. He has memorized the cracks in the sidewalk. He knows which tree drops its leaves first in autumn. He knows the crossing guard's name is Mrs. Yoon, and that she gives the children high fives before they cross. He knows these things the way astronomers know distant stars, through observation, through patience, through the aching awareness that knowing and touching are two entirely different things. Some men earn forgiveness. Some men earn second chances. Some men rebuild what they broke and carry on. Kang Hyun-woo earned a distance, 30 meters of sole sidewalk between him and the children who will one day learn his name. Maybe they'll understand. Maybe they won't. Maybe Seo Yun will look at her rain bracelet and feel something she can't explain. Or maybe the distance will stay exactly as it is, permanent, respectful, and full of a love that finally learned to be quiet. That's the end of this story. But it's not the end of yours. If this one hit different, if you felt that rooftop scene, if you're still thinking about those 3 chocolate bars in the mall, then do me a favor. Subscribe to Aurora Love Saga. Hit the bell. Because the next story? It starts with a woman walking into a courtroom with evidence that can bring down an entire empire. And the man she's about to destroy is the one who's been secretly funding her daughter's surgery for 6 years. You're not ready for that one. But I'll see you there. And tell me in the comments, should Hyun-woo have fought harder for custody, or was walking away the bravest thing he ever did? I'll pin the best answer.